giving an opportunity. And this is Siva Devaki from MassMailer. Today, we're going to talk about the email deliverability best practices at a very high level, what you can really do to improve the overall email strategy and the return from the email campaign that you keep running in your organization. At a high level, three things that I really want to touch today. One is the deliverability itself, what it means, and what you can really do about it. The second thing is the reputation, what reputation means and what can you really do to improve that and why it is important. And third thing is the compliance, which has become quite stringent in the recent past with the GDPR in Europe. You really want to know the compliance rules in each and every country and make sure that you're following that. So these are the three areas that I would like to discuss today. Talking about deliverability, just to kind of understand what it means. Like when you send out email, your goal is to make sure that the recipient is receiving it and they're actually reading it and they're responding to it, right? Ultimately, you want to make sure it goes to the inbox. And in the advent of internet, we have seen so many things that are happening in the internet, such as so much spam around, whether it is email spam or call spam or viruses, whatnot. So the security has gone very strict, especially after 2000, and it's very tough to really get things done if you don't follow certain rules and best practices. And that's where I think when it comes to emails, you really want to make sure that you do everything right to make sure the emails are getting to the inbox. So that's what is the deliverability about. And the reputation means so every person has a reputation. Similarly, every company has a reputation. Same thing. When you buy a domain and you're making use of it, you need to make sure that your domain is reputed. And if you're using a server, the IP address that belongs to that server, and if you're using it for sending out emails, it needs to be reputed as well, because everybody is monitoring everything. So you got to make sure that your domain and IP is with a good reputation and then not blacklisted. Compliance, again, we talked about it, meaning every country has its own rules and regulations, and you have to obey or follow those rules. And this is with respect to the emails. When it comes to compliance, now that it is going to be very tough to implement it, but you got to be very careful on following the rules that are defined at a very high level, right? In order to get a good deliverability. So these are the three things. Yeah. Now, talking about deliverability itself, what is it you can do to improve it? There are actually three things that are very important, and I listed four of them. Content. The content that you're sending out, is it spammy or not? Meaning whether it's the email subject or the email content itself or the layout itself. The words that you're choosing, whether they're good or bad. It may look good for your eyes, but not to the recipient email servers, because the recipient servers always looking for the spammers, and they have certain algorithms written through which they can actually easily find out who is sending out spam. So there are tools available for you to learn whether the content is spammy or not. So that's one most important thing. And the second thing is the list, which is where I think most of the people fail. It's not that you're buying a list or maybe you're acquiring lists, whatever it is, the list that you're sending out emails to, especially even if it's your own customers, you never know, maybe those customers have left the company, meaning those employees have left the company, and some of them may be bouncing. So you really have to make sure that the email list is clean. especially when you're buying a list from outside. It is very important that you eliminate the ones that are bad. Obviously, there are invalid or bounces, but other than bounces, there are many things that are that you got to be very careful of, especially spam traps. Nowadays, the organizations that are actually watchdogs, or even the bigger companies, they kind of seed a lot of spam trap emails because people scrape the data from anywhere, and they want to make sure that they find out those spammers. So it's very tough to find out the spam traps, but there are tools available. You can actually try to remove the spam traps as much as possible. And also, there are certain people who keep flagging the emails as a spam email, as a database of who those people are. You want to make sure that you eliminate those people as well, and a few other things that we can talk about. So basically, the email lists need to be very clean before you send out any email campaign. And the third thing is authentication that goes along with the dedicated IP address. So again, when you're sending out email from your company domain, say abc.com, how does the recipient server know that it is coming from abc.com? So that's where the authentication comes in picture. There's something called DNS, domain naming service, in which you're going to define or just say, hey, I'm signing myself as abc.com, and this is how I prove myself. And you can retrieve that information because everything is interconnected. The servers are interconnected. You can retrieve the information via the public DNS that I am publishing so that you know that I am abc.com. So that's like a layman term definition, right? So you got to authenticate your domain. And same thing goes with the link. If you are sending out email that has got links, you want to make sure those links are having your domain, the link. You got to brand those links as your domain links. That's important. And with the authentication, there are two things that you could do. One, either you go with a shared IP address or dedicated IP address, but shared IP address is prone to it may make you or flag your domain as a spammer, just because there are other people who may be sharing the same IP address. If you're signing up with, say, a bigger email service provider like MailChimp or Constant Contact or any other service providers, they may just give you the shared IP address. You never know who else is sending emails from the same IP address, and your domain may get affected. So the right way to do it, you have to get your own dedicated IP address that won't be shared by anyone else, that's given or allocated only to your domain. And then you make sure that you authenticate the IP address that is given to you and make sure it's clean as well. It's never blacklisted. So these are the high-level best practices that you would follow in order to make sure the email deliverability is high. And the next point is the reputation. Again, how can any domain get blacklisted? A few things can happen. I was talking to a couple of customers actually yesterday. Biggest mistake that they've done is they got a domain. I think it's a 1-year-old, but they never had SSL certificate on that, and they just started using it for emailing purposes. Right there, the recipient servers would know that there is no SSL certificate, and anyone who is receiving email, they click on a link and they get a pop-up saying that it is insecure. So that's a clear indication that you are not the right person to receive the email from. And they may just put you in the blacklist, and that's exactly what has happened. And what else can cause? Let's say you have a link in your email, and that's pointing to your domain, and you don't know if the domain is already blacklisted, but you have that link in your email. In a way, the recipient servers, again, monitoring what kind of content you have, and they may think that if you have a link that is already not in a good reputation, it's highly likely that your domain is also not reputed. So anything can happen like this, right? So it's very important to make sure that you're not blacklisted and you follow the best practices. What I mentioned. These are just a high level of it. They could be 50 different things that you may need to check, like all the checklist items that you can check off and say, hey, this is done, this is done, this is good. But you got to manage and monitor it regularly. It's not like a one-time thing. Because if you're sending out emails and email content keeps changing, the links keep changing, how do you know that the current email content that you have is good or bad? So it's a constant process. And the second most important thing is honoring the opt-outs. So most of the times when I talk to the customers and they say, hey, I don't want to keep the unsubscribe link because, this list that I got is good and they would like to hear from me. But that's not true. There may be people who do not want to hear from you, and you want to make sure that they can unsubscribe easily from your email list. This is, not just meant for prospects, sometimes customers. So if you're sending out newsletters, you're sending out to customers, maybe they don't want to hear from you, or they may not want to hear the marketing communication. Maybe they're interested in the product updates or any other things that are important, but not really the deals and marketing and stuff like that, right? So you need to make sure that you honor the opt-outs, and there's a link for the recipients to unsubscribe from the email. And then compliance. How can you really be compliant? First and foremost thing is, you always would want to have the opt-in list, but it may not be possible always. I get it. And we all understand that we keep prospecting, and sometimes we need to acquire the list, various means, and they may not be opt-in, and you still want to send emails. That's okay. Doesn't mean that you should not send email the person that you do not know. But most of the times, 90% of the times, you need to make sure that they want to hear from you. And if the list is purchased, there are other ways to really send out emails, again, with best practices. That's always possible to do it. And we talked about the opt-out and unsubscribe. They got to be a provision in your email where the recipients can unsubscribe easily just by clicking on something. And you can go a little advanced. Let's say you have a few different email subscription groups or preference groups, such as newsletter, product news, deals, and so on and so forth. You can always define those groups and let them pick and choose which group they want to unsubscribe from. That's provided the software that you're using is capable enough to do that. Signature line is very important because whenever you're sending out email, the other person should know who this person is sending the email to me. So your phone number, your email address, your company name, preferably your company address, all of that information should be there in the signature. We talked about the authentication. Again, when you're sending out email, especially Google actually highlights who is sending this. They clearly show the domain name, send via, and the domain name. So if you are using a tool to send out a mass email, you want to make sure that the domain is authenticated properly using the right set of DNS values so that the email recipient servers would know it's the right person who is sending it, and they would deliver that to the inbox. Now, talking about MassMailer, not that I'm really getting into the product features, but we are just going to focus on the best practices today, the deliverability best practices, but still it's important for me to highlight what MassMailer tool can do. It's a native Salesforce app through which you can send out emails, whether it is mass email or a single email, or even the email alert to any standard or custom object. There are tools available within MassMailer through which you can actually keep your reputation intact and also make sure your list is clean and you're following the best practices and all of that, right? We can jump into the demo, but quickly, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer before we get into the demo. Feel free to.
So is the product available in the App Exchange, or how do we?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's available. You can go to MassMailer.io and install it from there, or go to App Exchange, search for MassMailer, you will find it.
Okay. Do we need any Marketing Cloud licenses for this, or how does it work, license-wise?
No. License-wise, all you need is the enterprise or above. Even if you're a platform user, as long as, typically you would have one CRM license.
Right.
So even platform users can also leverage MassMailer, or community users too. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Right. Any more questions before I get into the demo? Okay. All right. Just to highlight what we're going to talk about, or what we're going to see in the demo. How to verify the email list, and how to monitor your domain and IP reputation, how to check the deliverability score, and the compliance thing, how you can really embed the signatures and whatnot. All right, let's get into the demo. Okay, so we talked about cleaning the list. I have a contact here, and deliberately I entered a bad email address, svaki@massmailer.io, even though it does not exist. I did validate it before the demo. I'm just going to go quickly show it to you. The verification date is today, and the status is invalid, and the verification substatus is mailbox not found, right? And there are many other status values that MassMailer provides. This is just one of them. So it's important to validate the list that you have. Even though I'm showing one contact, you can also do it in bulk. So there is a button here that says MassMailer email verify. You would just click on that, and that actually validates the email behind the scenes, and then it flags that specific contact or lead as valid or invalid. And you could do the same thing from a campaign. So if you have a campaign, which is a Salesforce campaign, or there's a wizard that is available right within MassMailer, in which you can actually validate the emails in bulk. So I'll just quickly show it to you. So let's say you go to contacts, and then you pick any of your list views. For example, go pick something. And this list, if you want to send out emails to them, and before sending out email, you want to make sure that they are valid. You can click on this button called verify email. Behind the scenes, it's actually going to submit a job to the verifier engine, and then it's going to send out an email that the job is done. The statistics are shown in one of the custom objects called MassMailer verification jobs, in which you can actually see how many are good, bad, how many are spam traps. All of the details are provided to you. That is one way you can do it in bulk. And similarly, if you go to campaign, you would also see a button on the campaign object itself that can let you actually verify the campaign members. So I don't have any test data here, but I think it's kind of apparent that when you create a campaign, you would see a button called email verify. You click on that, and then it will let you clean all the campaign members. And one good thing is we automatically suppress anything that is invalid or the bad email address because we do maintain like a invalid flag or invalid contact. For an example, let me just open one of the contacts here. Okay. Yeah, the one that I just opened earlier. Go to the details page. Okay. So there's a custom field called invalid contact. If this is checked, this gets suppressed automatically. And the other thing that you see, the standard field email opt-out, if the contact a lead for which the email opt-out is true, even those records also get suppressed automatically. The tool will take care of it for you, right? And this is one way you can actually just eliminate all the bad ones and keep your list clean. That's very important. And the second thing is talking about the email deliverability score, IP reputation, and all that. There's a tool available that's called MassMailer Email Monitor, through which you can actually just test out any email that you're sending out. For example, let's say you're sending out from one of your company email addresses, and you're sending it now. Like the industry, you can choose what industry you belong to, and then the approximate list size. Let's say sending out to say 10,000 people, and where you're sending the emails to. It could be worldwide, North America, Europe, Asia, or you can go countrywide, the specific country. And also you can select what template you're actually going to use and what is the language. Let's say you pick the basic fields here, and then you also select the template. Let's say you want to pick one of the templates and see how good it is or bad it is. Just loads up the template right there. And you click on this button called Test Email Deliverability, which is going to, again, send this particular email to the backend engine, and that's going to analyze the email content and everything, and it's going to give you the results. It takes around 6 minutes to analyze everything and then give you a result. And I'll show you the report, how it looks like once you get that analysis done. We send an email with a link through which you can actually just pull up a report like this, or after some time in 6 minutes or so, this particular page also refreshes with the report right here. So you can see it within Salesforce. Okay, so here, few things that we want to notice and observe. It gives you the overall deliverability score. You can see that 82.32% is deliverable, and rest of it is going to go to the spam filters. And the highlighted issues are here. There are some content issues, such as vocabulary, copywriting, and if there's a problem with the layout, it shows that. And if there's a problem in the links, as mentioned to you, if you have bad links in your email, we're going to catch it. Let's click on this vocabulary thing, and it's highlighting few words here. Those are in red colors. So, for example, this is a subject, and it gives the recommended words, and it says, hey, this word is discouraged, and don't use it. You can always use or change a different word. Change to a different word that may, maybe from this list, or maybe you can think of something else, right? Or maybe you can write completely a different subject line if you think that's too many words are not good. Same thing with the body content. We highlight the words that are, again, discouraged, and then we also give you the ones that are, replacement words, for example, right? So same thing, if it all is a problematic phrase, we highlight that and give you a suggestion there. And there's always a help link, like if you don't know what it is, for example, weighted words, it's talking about something about weighted words. Okay, you want to know that, so you just click on that and you click on this more information, and that gives you all the information that you need about the vocabulary, copywriting, gives complete information on how to really write the subject and the body, what is good, what is bad, all of those best practices given right here. So you can just go back and then keep looking at your report, and the coding and layout, if at all there's any problem, we highlight what the problem is. Sometimes the score is like 1.72. Perhaps you can ignore, but you can always check what anything that is going bad, especially the custom HTML that you would have built. And the link quality, if at all there are any bad links in the email, we highlight that, and that all gets stored right here. And then you can immediately rectify if at all the links are going to some domain that you do not know. If it's bad, just remove that. Tell your marketing team, hey, this is a problem. They'll correct it. And then the infrastructure, very important. Again, if you're going with a tool like MassMailer, obviously we'll make sure that the infrastructure is good. But since the infrastructure thing is one-time setup, but your IT team can change the infrastructure anytime, you don't know what they're doing, it's always better to make sure the infrastructure is in a good condition. Anything gets blacklisted, we store it right here. This is called BL blacklist. It says no blacklist, and there's no whitelist also. There are more advanced things that you could do by whitelisting your domain with certain email, like for example, Yahoo, AOL, or Gmail, or Hotmail. You can always whitelist your domain with them. There's a form that you need to submit. If you did that, it shows up right here. And also, we give you the IP address where the email is getting delivered from, and if it is blacklisted, it gets highlighted right here. So it's very easy for you to figure out, is my IP and domain is in a good reputation or not. The same thing, if there is any problem with the infrastructure, especially the SPF, it's called Sender Policy Framework. Not confusing the technical term. All it means is that when you say that, hey, I'm using this domain, you're telling the recipient server that I'm actually using so and so the IP address, and you have to, if someone else is sending the email from the same domain, and if it is not from this particular domain IP address, just discard it, right? So you're kind of securing yourself. It's like an ID for you saying that, hey, this is me. And you can get it because I published it. So nobody can hack into your DNS server. I mean, typically, like if you go with a GoDaddy kind of a thing, right? No one else would know what is your GoDaddy password. They can't really play with your DNS settings. So meaning, if you have authenticated your domain through your domain name server settings, and you publish the right IP address and right SPF value, even if somebody is trying to spoof with your domain, they would get blacklisted, but not you. And their emails would be bouncing, but not yours. So you got to follow certain SPF syntax here. Same thing, DKIM. So these are all like frameworks that have been defined the past 20 years. DKIM, again, saying that domain keys management. It's an identification for your domain keys, and there's a way to define the domain key, even though this doesn't really give you what DKIM value that you have. It just highlights if at all there's any problems. So for this particular domain, it's all good. And same thing with the DMARC. You need to make sure that your DMARC policy is good. The policy record that you have here has a meaning behind that. Today we may not want to really get into the specific details, but you can just understand that, hey, these are all the frameworks that are being defined in the internet industry, and we just try to make sure that we got the right set of records defined in the DNS server, and that'll take care of everything. And the compliance, again, if at all you have cookies on your website, provided you have links to your website, make sure that you follow the cookie policies as well, right? And if you have links for other websites, and it's going to highlight those websites with their cookies, it's going to highlight it as well. If there's any problem, it's going to give you the warnings section. It's going to highlight if at all there's any problem. So you can actually correct it immediately. This is very important with the advent of GDPR. Nowadays, cookie policies become very strict. So this is very important to make sure that the email is compliant. And finally, previews. So this is the most important thing, especially if you're using HTML layouts. How do you know the HTML that you're using is going to render properly in the recipient, the email client? Let's say they're using Outlook. How is your email going to look like in a specific Outlook version? You don't know. So use the tool like this and make sure the email is rendering properly. This is a real-time rendering. That way you're actually not blindfolded. You get the content from someone and then you send out email, but you don't know whether it's going to be good or bad, the layout-wise, right, and the rendering-wise. Same thing on the iPhone. So you want to make sure whether this is rendering properly on any mobile device as well, right? So we have a few of these clients that we render at real time. Some of them are web clients, and some of them are desktop clients, and also the mobile clients. So whatever is quite popular is what we have listed here. Anything that is still not like loaded here. For an example, you want to go check how it's going to look like in Windows Live Mail, which I never used. You can just click on it and request it, and it's going to render it real time. It's going to give the results back after some time. You click open, make sure that it's all in a good condition, right? And if you're using a tool to really build your email templates, most likely your templates would be okay. But if you're doing a custom HTML, or maybe you hired someone who just built your HTML, and maybe they've not really tested it using a tool like this, you may end up having issues. So it's very important for you to really use the right tool, and also make sure you check the preview before you send out emails. Not that I'm really going to get into the details, but there is a feature that we have. It's called Email Template Builder. If you use the tool from MassMailer, it's a drag and drop kind of an editor. You won't have any issues with the layout. So just to again let you know, this is the MassMailer email monitor results. It's just loaded up. I know this one says that 56% is deliverable and rest is not, and there are certain issues, and it's giving the average score in this region, the North America. And it, again, for this particular industry, it's giving what is the score. It's below average. Too many issues, right? And it's highlighting what the problem is with the vocabulary and all that. And also there's a problem that I noticed with the infrastructure, I guess. Yeah, so the DMARC. So it's kind of highlighting what the problem is, right? So this is a good example here. It says the authentication is failing. This is what I see, but still there's a problem. DKIM is passed, but not aligned, right? It's saying that you still have to make certain changes. So it's very important to really know what you're getting into. So if you follow the best practices, most likely you can improve the overall email deliverability score that is shown here. It shows 56% is deliverable, right? If you kind of optimize your content, around 30% would go up. And if you fix this DMARC, that's again giving you a few more marks, and you're good to go, right? So that's about the email best practices. And similarly, talking about the signature lines, MassMailer does support the merge field. You can just use a standard Salesforce merge tags that we support and send out email. That should take care of it. You can also embed images, meaning like if you want to have a picture, you can do that as well. But most of the times, if you're sending out emails to regular prospects, in which it's not a marketing kind of an email, it's more like not a professional email, but with a personal touch. You want to make sure there are not too many images and everything. Not that you should not use images. Don't get me wrong. You can still use images, but make sure you have the right length. And the image is not bulky. It's less in size. many things that you can actually look into, but it's not a rocket science. It's just once you know the basics, you just keep following that, and you should be okay, right? Any questions so far? Okay, seems like there are no questions. Again, here is my contact information, siva.devaki@massmailer.io. You can call my office number. You can call my cell number directly. You can actually go to our website, massmailer.io, and then submit any query or do a free trial of MassMailer. I'm happy to talk to you, whatever the use case may be. One aspect is the email deliverability. Other aspect is, meeting your business needs and requirement. So we got a very powerful tool that can really help you with any kind of email problems that you may have. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to support you. Seems like there is a question. Oh, okay, so just a thank you message. Okay, thank you, Sarah. All right. Okay, all right, wonderful. Once again, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity here, Ceci and Will, and happy to help you. Take care. Bye-bye.